Hello and welcome to another swing analysis. Today I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I'm going to compare two different players. On the left is the recent winner of the 2013 USPGA Championship for his first major, it was Jason Dufner. And on the right you probably recognise Ben Hogan. Now, Jason Dufner is renowned as one of the best ball strikers on the PGA Tour and is well noted as claiming he grew up reading Ben Hogan's books and idolising Ben Hogan as many people did, and actually has tried to emulate or copy some of the things in his own swing that Ben Hogan did, which a lot of people have tried and a lot of people have failed. So let's take a look at the two swings. Now the swing of Hogan on the right is with a wood, probably a driver, so the stance is wider. The swing on the left with Jason Dufner is an iron, so you notice how the Jason Dufner stance is quite narrow for a full swing, and Ben Hogan's stance seems quite wide for a full swing, so that's one difference. I'm sure Jason using a driver stance would be a little wider, but I don't see him being as wide as Ben Hogan. One interesting thing that Jason does do is he has a somewhat unique waggle prior to his swing. You see him here kind of waggling the club back and forward. Now that's not a rehearsal for his swing, it's just a release of tension, keeping that constant motion. Doesn't want to freeze over the ball and stand there for too long, as a lot of amateurs do. Actually something that Ben Hogan advocated as well, the freezing over the golf ball and the sudden takeaways, very hard to time. So Jason likes to make that little waggle, and it's essentially just with his wrists and his hands. You see his shoulders and chest is really not moving, it's just a tension release, I would describe. So once he's ready to go, he'll place the club behind the ball, and really straight away the takeaway will begin. There'll be no delay at all. Now a couple of interesting things here about Jason. We mentioned earlier the stance being relatively narrow for a full swing, which he's making. Other thing you'll notice here is he's got the shaft very vertical, or even slightly a little bit tilted away from the target. His hands here are actually slightly behind the ball, which is not so common with an iron, something that I think is quite a good thing. His hands are slightly behind or above the ball with address. Don't like the hands being pushed forward too much in the setup position. Jason has very minimal tilt in his body. The shoulders are kind of level and the spine is relatively vertical. You draw that line up directly from the golf ball, you'll see that it probably goes through his left eye, so he has a little bit of tilt, which I think all good players would have. You see Hogan on the right there has that little bit of tilt in the spine with the head behind the ball. So the most obvious two things here is the width of the stance and the hands set behind the ball. Now Jason's takeaways very interesting, where he's got a really nice one piece takeaway with the chest, arms and club all moving together. There's no real early hinge of the wrist initially, so he gets his club shaft parallel to the ground and he's essentially just maintained the hinge in his left wrist that he began with. Let's take a look at the swing on the right and see Ben Hogan. You'll see same thing here. It's very one piece, very wide in the takeaway. Nice turn of the upper body through here. Now as Jason continues into the next stage of his backswing, one thing he does do, that he has the right arm is very close into his body, as is Ben Hogan here. We don't see his right arm, it's underneath his left somewhat. But there wasn't a lot of width in the right arm. There's not a lot of distance between the club shaft and, let's say, the head halfway back. A lot of the modern players would have a more wide position at this stage in their golf swing. You'll see here the left wrist is fully hinged by this stage. Now top of the swing with Jason again is with an iron versus Ben with a driver. Now you see Ben Hogan has a lot of hinge between the left forearm and the shaft. Now I'm sure Jason with the driver, the swing would be a little longer. You might see the driver shaft get back into this area, but but he never gets as long as Ben Hogan did on the right hand side. So a little shorter in the overall length of the swing. So he's turned nicely behind the ball, as all your good players will have done. Interesting thing to notice with Ben Hogan's right leg here, it appears to be straight from this side. It's really not. It does have some flex, which you'd see from the down the line view, but that right hip is well inside his right foot, so he's not moved out behind the ball. He certainly hasn't swayed into his right leg at all in the backswing. And what both of these players do extremely well is that they sequence their downswing correctly, using the energy from the ground, the resistance of the leverage from the ground to start moving the lower body. Look at Jason's left knee here, moving out towards the target before the clubs even change direction. The left knee starts to move forward. The next thing after that, the left hip will start to move out towards the target right there. Now Ben Hogan talked about this even going back in his era in the 40s and the 50s, and trying to use the ground for leverage and sequencing the golf swing from the ground up. Now, when that's been proven to be correct, back in Ben's day where the video cameras weren't as good and the technology wasn't around, he definitely advocated that, and he definitely did that, and it's been proven to be absolutely correct. So he was kind of ahead of his time in this knowledge of the golf swing. It was noticed here is a similar stage of the downswing that Jason's left arm to shaft, pretty conventional, a little more than 90 degrees, whereas Ben's got a massive amount of lag between the leading left arm and the shaft, certainly a lot more than what Jason's got. You'll notice also Ben's right elbow down here is very close into his body already, right there. Same, very similar with Jason. Right elbow is in close to his body. Now, down around about this stage when the club shaft is parallel to the ground, camera on the right's a little blurry given the technology of the cameras back in the day. You'll see that's Ben's club shaft there. His left arm still has a very significant angle approaching the ball between the lead left arm and the shaft. Look at the lower body, Ben's really moved out and moved forward. See that left hip and that left knee significantly moving forward. Of course there's also some turn involved, but you do need to move into your left side to get that power transfer correct. Head remaining behind the ball. So the sequence of all these good players is the lower body leads the upper body. So it would be the legs, the hips, followed by the chest, then the arms, and then finally the club. And that's how Ben's able to create this enormous lag. He's a very long hitter back in his day, Ben, and Jason Dufner's not known for long hitting, but still has the same sequence from the ground up. The lower body leads the upper body. And if we run this swing through to impact, one thing you'll notice here with Jason is his hands are now forward of the golf ball, which they were not at address. If you look closely, the shaft on Jason's club appears to be bent, with the club shaft or the club head sort of tilted out in front of the shaft, but I believe that that's just an illusion with the camera. This video may have been taken on an iPhone or an iPad, and the camera on an iPhone is renowned for doing this. This isn't really an illusion of the camera. With Jason's hands here with the golf ball there, his shaft would be leaning more forward. If the shaft is deflected, which it would be bent back the other way. Now this is just, if you're seeing your golf swing on an iPhone or an iPad and you see the shaft looking like that, it really cannot be that. Unless of course it's an early release from the top and a throw in action of the club head, and the hands would be behind the golf ball to have that shaft bent what appears to be the wrong way. So I believe that's not really what's happening. You see Jason's hitting down on the golf ball. You see there's a divot in front of the ball. See that explosion there of the sand. So if his club shaft was deflected back like that, the club head would be moving up and there'd be no way for them to make a divot forward of the ball, so it's just an illusion of the camera, so let's just ignore that. But the position of his body is fantastic. He's increased the tilt of his body from what it was at address. The head has remained behind the ball, as all the good players will have, and the weight of the left side is favouring the target side, moving forward, so you can downward compress this golf ball. Now Ben is using a driver here, so there's no divot. The club shaft still comes in behind the trails behind the lead arm into the golf ball. So even with the driver here, but hitting slightly down the golf ball. You see some similarities in these two swings as they go past impact. Both of them are very wide post impact. There's no early rehinge in the left wrist. Nice and wide here. Ben even more so. So, Jason's description of how much he admires Ben Hogan, as many of us do, and tried to emulate some things in his golf swing. I don't see a lot of that. It's certainly a great golf swing, and the reason he won the USPGA is because of his ball striking. His driving was amazingly accurate, and his iron play was just phenomenal. Hit a lot of shots to inside of 2 feet, and to be honest with you, his putting wasn't fantastic, but it didn't really need to be. His ball striking was so good. So certainly a great golf swing, one that is very repeatable. I like his waggle, one that's kind of a dying art these days. A lot of players are more stationary over the golf ball, but Jason likes the waggle. I like the golf swing in general, but in terms of comparing it to Ben Hogan, there's not a lot of things that are similar. He doesn't have the amount of lag that Hogan had, and he probably doesn't want it, to be honest with you. As he approaches into the golf ball, he's got a great impact position, as of course did Ben Hogan. And I think the other difference with Jason is he likes to hit a lot of shots right to left, likes to draw the ball. He can work the ball both ways, of course, but Ben Hogan in his prime didn't draw the ball very often. In fact, he was very anti-draw. His shots flew relatively straight with a slight fade as a preference. And I think Jason is more apt at turning the ball in both directions, right to left and left to right. So great golf swing, one that's going to last him for many years. If he can just improve his putting statistics, I think he's going to become more of a regular winner. Now, take a look at part 2 of this swing analysis from the down the line view, and you might see some more similarities to Ben from that side. Okay, thank you.